What's the biggest red flag you have seen on a first date? We met for drinks after work, since we both work in the same industry, and she showed up with a list of interview questions. She literally had a checklist on her phone for me to fill out. I thought she was joking at first, but the questions were extremely personal, like how many sexual partners you've had, the oldest, the youngest, had you ever had sex with an animal, how much money you made the previous year, if you owned a house, a car, a boat, a plane, did you have a criminal history, where do your parents live, are they alive, who did you vote for in the last election, all kinds of stuff like that. I even proposed that we could just use that as a conversation starter and we could work through them like that as a fun way to get to know each other. I was really trying. She tells me that she's not answering any of them because I'm trying to date her, not the other way around. I laughed out loud thinking she was kidding, then realized she was absolutely serious. I wished her all the best in the dating world, chugged my beer, overtipped the waitress, and left. This was literally the day of a first date. But I had matched with an older man when I was still on dating apps. We planned to go on a hike on a very beautiful day by the water. On the day of the date, he wanted me to leave my car at his place, while he drove us through the backwoods so we can beat traffic. I said I'll be happy to drive myself, and he laughed and cancelled. His reasoning was he's been stood up so many times and he didn't want to waste his time and me not show up. I said okay, I apologize for the inconvenience. I hope you find what you are looking for, and blocked him. The red flag was when he genuinely got upset that I didn't want to ride in a car with a stranger through the backwoods for our first date. Hung out with a girl in a group of mutual friends, got her number, and asked her out. She was nice, attractive, and we just seemed to click in our limited conversations. As soon as we sat down to dinner, she asked me, "Are you saved?" And then when I said, "What do you mean?" she went into a spiel about Jesus and Christianity, asked about my religious background, scolded me for saying I was agnostic, and then said, "I'm scared you're going to go to hell. You need to accept Jesus right now." All before our dinner was even served. As we ate, she continued preaching to me as all I could think to do was nod and say I understand until it was over. As we left I said goodbye awkwardly, and before I even got home she had sent me a text saying this isn't going to work out, I need to be with someone as passionate about their faith as me. No problem, understandable, I was just caught so off guard by it all after the previous time seeing her it felt like a fever dream. I worked in a huge government facility doing blue-collar jobs. I had a bright red muscle car and was friendly and easygoing. There was this very striking woman who worked there, maybe not my type, but I was curious. She was extremely well-built, nice face, sexy clothing, but too much makeup as I saw it. We were parked near one another and she came over and started talking with me, particularly about my car. I asked her out. On a warm summer evening I drove out in the sticks to pick her up. She lived in a rundown, concrete block house with a couple of broken down cars in the yard and a scary dog chained to a tree. The yard was bare of grass. I pulled up and a shirtless guy came sauntering up while another guy stood in the doorway smoking a cigarette. He stuck his head into my car and started talking about how cool it was even though it wasn't a Chevy. He smelled like BO, beer, and cigarettes. After a bit he said, "Becky is almost ready. Come on in." When he turned to walk away I saw pistol in his back waistband. Inside there was a TV, a broken down sofa, a folding chair, and a couple of cardboard box tables covered with beer and whiskey bottles and ashtrays full of butts. I stood around awkwardly, but soon Becky came out in a tight shirt and a miniskirt. Very mini. She went to stand next to her brother and told him that she'd be home later. He reached up under her skirt, right between her legs, and she giggled and pushed his hand away. As we started to pull out on the road to go into town, I started to turn left. She said, frantically, "Don't go down there. We can get to town the other way. But going left is more direct." I know, but the people at the bottom of the hill hate us and might try to stop you or even shoot at us if they recognize us. We went the other way. On the way to town, we had nothing to say other than to talk about my car. She asked me to show her what the car would do in a drag race. I stopped in a long straightaway and ran it through the gears. She was impressed. After that, uncomfortable silence. I finally said something like, "This isn't going to work out, is it?" "Probably not. We're pretty different from one another." I took her home and it wasn't even fully dark yet. It was the entire date. I'm actually shocked I didn't dip out earlier. This guy and I went out. Throughout the years somehow we kept running into each other. First on the bus, he approached me and we exchanged numbers. Chatted, but nothing came of it. 4 to 5 years later? He's at a friend's birthday party, both of us are like, WTF, it's you. Later on, he writes me and said that he asked our mutual friend for my number. We finally go on a date after all these years. He picks me up in his car, he's driving erratically. We are chatting about how crazy it that we randomly bumped into each other. He then starts telling me that when we met, he still had a girlfriend and thought I was super hot. That he also was a coke dealer at the time, but now he was super into crystals and making jewelry out of them by wrapping them with wire. He says that before we get drinks or dinner, he wanted to check out a shop that sells crystals. We get there and he's telling me which each one does. Okay, whatever. Eventually we get to a bar, we get drinks. He's showing me pictures of rocks on his camera roll. He skips through ones that are text conversations with girls. He's even being texted and he's swiping to hide the messages from girls asking what he's up to or where he is. He goes out to smoke. A friend walks into the bar and says hi, sitting right next to me. I tell him what's going on and how it's the worst date ever. My friend empathizes, has a shot, and closes out. The guy comes back in and gets super weird. Before I can introduce my friend, he reaches his arm straight in front of me to shake his hand and ask who he is. While he does that, he knows my drink everywhere. Friend introduces himself and says, "Well, I was here for the one, nice to meet you," and leaves. The bartender comes up and starts cleaning the mess. The guy I'm with goes all, "Yeah, so sorry. That guy just came up and knocked her drink over, and just left." Little did he know, I was a regular at the bar and so was my friend. There's no way he would do that, and the bartender knew that. We both call him out on his bullshit. He throws a fit, says he wants to close out. And, of course, he forgot his wallet. In which he says to me, "You got this right? Come on, let's leave. We can go elsewhere." Like, WTF no? I told him there was no way I was getting in that car with him and that he should just leave. He did. The most annoying thing about this dude is that he eventually came into the bar I worked at years later and became a regular. He would always bring friends and flirt with me, telling them I was the one that got away. The dude was a walking red flag.